Good morning, everybody. Welcome. My name's Katrina Sedgwick, and I'm the Director and CEO here at ACMI, the Australian Centre for Moving Image. It's fantastic to have you all here today for Preserving the Near Future Symposium. I'd like now to invite Ron Jones, Wurundjeri Elder, to come up and give us a welcome to country. Please make him welcome.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Katrina. Good morning, everyone. How can I say it? It's a great pleasure to come to a welcome to country, you know, so Wurundjeri Kabik to everyone. So can I get everyone to say Wurundjeri Kabik? In my Wurrung language, that means welcome to my ancestors' country. My name is Ron Jones and I'm an elder of the Wurundjeri Council. The Wurundjeri people are traditional custodians of a very large area. We go from the mouth of the Werribee River, then we go right up into the Great Divide. And from the Great Divide, we come right back to the Yarra Ranges. And from Yarra Ranges, we go right up into Mount Baw Baw. And then from Mount Baw Baw, we come back around to the Mordialloc Creek. And from the Mordialloc Creek, we come back around to the mouth of the Werribee River. Now, my ancestors looked after this country for over 30,000 years, and we're very passionate about our country. And we've got a bit of a slide, if we can get this slide up here. Now, the Yarra River at the back of us is very prominent to us. Of course, this shot here was taken at Corandurk Aboriginal Mission Station around about in the early 20s it would have been. So it's very passionate about Corandurk because it sits on the Yarra River there. And Corandurk back in them days, it was fully self-supporting when they rounded all our people up from all over places here in Victoria and shut up other mission stations and put them up to Corandurk. And Corandurk was growing hops and everything up there, and they winning prizes for growing their hops and everything at Corandurk. And I suppose the people up that lived around them areas in the day said, oh, this is no good. Aboriginal people can't show that they're making money out of their own self-determination, which it was back in them days. So they decided to carve Corandurk up and shift our people to like places like Lake Tyers, Cumragunja, Ebenezer and all them places. So what happened, my great-grandmother here actually was a stolen generation from Lake Maloga that was brought into Corandurk, so that's my grandmother, Granny Jemima. So the next Aboriginal lady next to her, that other beautiful woman, is my grandmother, Nan Nevin. So she was born at Corandurk, and the other young lady there is one of Nan Nevin's sisters. Now that little white butterfly is my mum. So she was born at Corandurk too. So if people could go back and imagine a person like my mum being born on an Aboriginal mission station, she suffered so much terrible racism up at Hearsville and on Corandurk because actually Granny Jemima wanted to terminate her because she thought that she was a white person born into an Aboriginal body to spirit, and she was going to bring bad omen to the Yarra Yarra people because that's who we were known back in them days as Yarra Yarra tribe of Melbourne. So only for Tom Denelli, after Robert Wandin passed on, Tom Denelli married Granny Jemima, so he, and when Mum was born, so he was the one that stood up and said, no, she's going to be a beautiful thing for our people at Corandurk, which she did do. So she went through her life helping, and she was a part of setting up the first Aboriginal Medical Centre here in Fitzroy in 1972 in Gertrude Street, Fitzroy. And actually I think that place should be heritage listed for Aboriginal people because a lot of the stuff come out of Gertrude Street in the 60s, and that's where all our people used to congregate and get together after, you know, where people come off of Cumragunja and all that. And actually me grandmother, when Corandurk was shut up, Nan Nevin and my mum and that was sent to Cumragunja. So, you know, Mum lived up there probably until she was about 14 years of age until they think. But when they had to walk off from Cumragunja, when they come back to Melbourne with William Cooper and Doug Nichols and all them people, they set up the Advancement League. So my grandmother was a part of setting up the Aboriginal Advancement League here. So we have a very good, strong history, you know. And when we talk about preserving for the future, we've been doing it for over 60,000 years. We've been doing it in stories, oral history and all that. So things have changed a little bit, but in our mind here, our people did it through painting, storytelling and things like that. So things have certainly changed a little bit with all this other thing. But when you could go back and, like I was doing a Welcome to Country for some engineers and that a few months ago, and they were talking about what they were achieving and everything. And I said, you know, it was Aboriginal people that prevented or invented the first flight machine. And the bloke said, what are you talking about, first flight machine? I said, yes. I said, the first drone were invented by Aboriginal people. He said, where do you get that from? I said, from boomerangs. So, you know, when you think of the boomerang, that was their first flight machine. So what happened, I suppose, when you look back through history, they probably added a body to it and they put wings on it and they put a tail on it and put a couple of engines in it. But our machines used to come back and fly back to us, you know. So actually when you're thinking, and I was just saying before about with knives too, our people were the first ones to invent knives. Silkreed cutting tool. So, you know, a lot of things actually, if you go back and look over the last 60,000 years and have a look at Aboriginal people and the way like our stone axes, green stone axes and all that. So, you know, it's about preserving, and we've preserved our stories by passing on to our other people and our younger generation and our oral history. And one of my jobs within the Wurundjeri Council is I'm a cultural heritage officer. And like last night on my way home, I had to go and do an inspection out at Underbank Farm. It's a new housing estate they're building out at Bacchus Marsh. So when I get out there, here's the machines that are moving around all the soil and that. And I said to the fellas, I said, oh, you shouldn't have started work until I come out and did an induction and did an inspection out here. So they had to stop work. And the young chap said to me, he said, but Aboriginal? I said, yeah, why? What's wrong with that? He said, but you don't look it. He said, we were expecting someone a little bit darker to come out. I said, well, you know the reason why I look a little bit different to the other people? I said, I'm like my mother. We're both born in the daytime, and my grandmother and that were born in the night time, you know. So this bloke was completely amazed, but, you know, so it just shows you how we're changed in a lot of times, and especially like my mum and the stories that she told me about Corranderk, what a beautiful place it was. But when you go back and look at all our people and what they suffered on them mission stations, they really suffered bad. They suffered terrible thing, but to her, Corranderk was such a beautiful place. But back in them things, you know, they didn't have TV, they didn't have all this, they only had their stories and their yarning stories and all that. So, you know, I just love talking about our history. And like when you think of William Barrick right up the top end of Swanson Street there, his image on that building, his image is looking right down Swanson Street. It looks over the Shrine of Remembrance and it looks over Victoria Market. So to us, his spirit is looking away to all our people that went away to war. And a lot of people don't realise our Aboriginal people that come off the mission stations that went into the First World War, Second World War, Korea, and halfway through Vietnam, if they ticked the box and said, oh, Aboriginal, they weren't allowed to go into the army. So a lot of our men had to tick the box as something else, as an American Negro or as a Maori or an Indian or that. So a lot of that history, you know. A lot of people are amazed when you talk about that history, because I just got married when actually Vietnam, and I had the box to tick, but when I ticked the box, I could tick the box back in them, because I think it was 67 were counted as citizens of this country and were recognised. So, you know, we still got a long way to go, and they talk about closing a gap, but here in Victoria, our gap is getting wider. It's not closing. And Tasmania is the same, and actually, our Aboriginal people, we're going backwards here. We're going back 20 years ago to what we did achieve for our people, and it's a shame to see what's going on. A lot of people don't realise, and Howard, I think he should be hung and quartered for that intervention order that he brought in our people, because that put our people back. And a lot of people don't realise that flows right around Australia now. So what Howard done and special like this treaty now, it's good to see, because a lot of people are going to focus on treaty here in Victoria, so I hope we get it right. But the government's put up a treaty, but there's nothing there at the end of the treaty. They haven't worked that out. So, you know, we hope that things get done right, but if the Libs get in this year, and it looks like a big chance, that'll be knocked right on the head. So it'll put our people back again. So, you know, we hope that, in a way, Labor do get in to keep that momentum going, that it'll flow on to the rest of Australia. And the way that the different things that Dean Radio people are saying they're going to come in and take your land and all that, a lot of people don't realise here in Victoria, you cannot get private land. The way that it's set up through Native Title Service, you can't, you've got to prove continuous way of 300 years of living. So we will never ever get native title here in Victoria. So a lot of people don't realise, same as Tasmania. So look, it's been a great privilege to come and welcome all you beautiful people onto our country and enjoy the rest of the day. And I'd love to stay and listen, but I'm going to go home. I've had a pretty hectic week this week. So enjoy the rest of the time. It's your time. Thanks very much for having me, Ta.
Thank you, Ron. And I too would like to acknowledge that we meet here today on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people and pay my respects to their elders past and present. So a day like today only happens through a series of really rich partnerships, and I'd like to thank very much our co-presenters today, the RMIT School of Design and University of Melbourne's Grimwade Centre for Materials Conservation. It's been fabulous working with you guys to develop today's program. And I would like to thank all of the speakers who are here today. Many of you have travelled from across the country to be here, and some of you across the world, and we really appreciate it. And thank you to the Melbourne New York City initiative that's going along at the moment right across the city as part of NGV's spectacular MoMA exhibition. And this initiative has enabled us to bring Ben Fino-Raden and Kalani Nicole from New York to be speakers here today. And of course, I'd like to thank Creative Victoria, who are such fantastic ongoing supporters of us. ACMI is the National Museum for Film, Television, Video Games, Digital Culture and Art. We had over 1.5 million visitors come through our Federation Square last year. It was our biggest so far. So clearly audiences are super interested in engaging with all of these media. We have, as part of our work, we hold the State Film Archive, which has got over 170,000 objects and media in it. And we have also within that a significant holding of Australian and international time-based media art. Fantastic artists, over 500 works, ranging from Candice Brights to Warwick Thornton, Daniel Crooks to Sean Gladwell to Lynette Walworth. And since I arrived here about 3.5 years ago as the director of ACMI, we've really kind of ramped up this commissioning program. We're very interested in pushing into new form and new platforms and enabling practitioners to explore these spaces. But that brings a whole lot of really new challenges for our collections team. All of these works are created with software. They arrive in our collection as born digital works, even if they're single channel linear works. And you're going to hear about some of these works and our efforts to preserve them for the long term later today. Another important part of our collection, it's small, but it's very significant, is our video games collection. We've got 200 Australian games, and we're going to be really ramping up our work in that area, and we're looking forward to partnering with organisations like the NFSA, who are going to be moving into this space as well. It's urgent work that needs to be done, and we're going to hear more from Dr. Melanie Swalwell later today about this very important area which she has been researching for many years. We're undertaking a $40 million renewal process at the moment, a huge makeover, and in early 2020 we hope you'll all come and experience a very transformed and newly vibrant institution. But a key part of that is going to be our Media Preservation Lab. So the idea of this is to take the collections work that our team do at the moment in the kind of bottom of the Yarra building and bring it up into the public spaces of our museum. So every day our visitors are going to see the fascinating preservation work that's happening by our team. This lab is going to focus on time-based media preservation. It's going to bring public and industry and education sector exposure to the work that we're doing directly here, but also with many partnerships and partners around the world. It's around preservation of film and magnetic media, but also born digital work from art through video games and of course beyond. And we're going to host public demonstrations and open days and work, as I said, really closely with many partners to do this critical work. We feel that we're quite uniquely placed in this space because of this intersection between industry, art and the public, and we think that's a really fascinating nexus. And when you bring education and research into that space as well, there are so many new models and processes and practices that we can start to explore, but also really help kind of transform the culture around preservation more broadly. I do want to just quickly thank the ACMI team who've been working really hard on this program. Not only the team who are going to deliver this event to you today, but also to Seb Chan, Sophie Lieberman, Nick Richardson, and all of the collections team who've worked really tirelessly on the program. Thank you. I'd like now to hand over to Professor Robin Sloggett from Grimwade Centre for Materials Conservation, who's going to chair our first session.
Thank you. Thanks, Katrina. I was saying to Katrina just before, there's a real buzz, I think. So I think this symposium is absolutely timely, and I want to thank ACME for putting it together. And again, just reiterate the thanks to the team, to Katrina Sedgwick for leading such a fabulous team, and for Sophie Lieberman, Seb Cham and Nick Richardson for putting this together as the team. I mean, it's been great working with them and working with RMIT. We had a few meetings where we framed what was going on, and it was great. And wonderful to be able to welcome Ben Funnerad and Kalani Nicole as well. But it's my duty and pleasure today to introduce the first session, and it's going to open with speakers Mr. Wukan Wannabe, Mr. Ishmael Marika, and Mr. Rob Lane. Mr. Wannabe is the Cultural Director at the Mulka Centre. Mr. Marika is the Creative Director, and Rob Lane was a former Program Director. So our focus will be on the production of the Mulka Centre as a preservation archive, but also as a production centre for new work. And we felt that this was an important framing of the symposium, because we talk about it as the near future, but of course, we just heard before in the Welcome to Country that there's a continuum. And we tend in conservation, I think, to compartmentalise our specialisms. So we work in new media, we preserve that in certain ways. We have preservation officers who maintain environment, we have our methodologies, and these tend to be compartmentalised in order to get to the outcome of the preservation of culture. But what the Mulka Centre presents is a very different model to that, and that's what we're going to investigate in our first session. And it's a model of cultural continuum and an integrated approach to cultural preservation. So I want to welcome Mr. Ishmael Marika to the stage, podium, front, who's going to lead this session. Thank you, Ishmael.
Hello, good morning. My name is Ishmael Marika. I'm a young creative director. I'm 27 years old. I work in Mulka 8 years, and I'm privileged here. Acknowledge the landowners, past and present. First of all, we have to start with a video, which is intro for Mulka projects, and from there we'll kick it up. People that don't know where we come from, we're from Northeast Annam Land in Northern Territory. We can show you the map where we're from. So we're from the Northern Territory, the east part of the Northern Territory, the tip of the Northeast Annam Land. The place called Yirkala. It's a small, remote community. 5,000 people lives in there. It's a mining area. mining started in 1950s and 60s. So in the coast side, Girkala, and then we're swimming into the Mulka project, which is where we base in Northeast Annam Land. Guruto sessions. Guruto is the really main thing in Northeast Annam Land. Guruto, people lives together in olden days. In the past, 1935, this is 1935, shot by anthropologist Donald Thompson, went around early days and find out how Yolngu lives in North. And the Guruto is really, really important because it brings peace to the people and also joyness and happiness. People live together because the Guruto, the connections. This film was shot in 1935. It was 16 frame. Donald Thompson's shot it. And I re-edit these films. We work on 24 frames. I timed the clapsticks and the knee, how people dance, and put the new song lines in. The same law people or cultural song people, and put it into the past. How the difference between 1935 and the song was recorded in 2012. This is how we explain the audience or other people that don't know how we related or connected to the other people. I wanna put these connections, which is the Guruto. So the Guruto is recycles of the ancestors. It's a full recyclement. So when I say me and then my father and then his father, which is my grandfather, and my grandfather's father is my son, and his father is my brother, and his father is my father, and his father is my grandfather, and his father is my son, and his father. So this is the connections of the Guruto, the recyclement from generations been from past and generations present. So, and also that's my father's generation, which is the past. I can say my generations, which is me, my sons, his sons is my grandson, his sons is my father, his sons is my grandfather, his sons. So it goes around. So we want to explain how the Guruto works in Northeast Annam Land, the connections to the people, and not only people, to the land, to the plants, to the weed, and to the sea. This is another way of telling how the connections goes in a digital world. We want to tell people, the audience, the blue line you see, that's your father's line. The red line is your grandmother's line. Up on the corner, that's your mother's line. And the purple will be like my wife or my girlfriend's line. This side is my sister's husband's line. So another way of explaining connections through the media. You can see the connections with lots of different videos. It's telling you a different culture, different law, but it's also connected because the family from different areas coming in and celebrating and, you know, respecting this culture because the connections comes in. It goes with the songlines, it goes with the paintings, and it goes with the land and sea as well. And then after that, there's people comes in after, and that's the bigger way of telling the connections through the media. It's a new way. This is, we have Marian Guttara, which is grandmother and grandson. So we have backup 62 terabyte of backup in the archive. And in the archive, there's, this is it. We scan the brain of Molka, and you can find lots of different videos, final cut videos, unfinished videos, and there is 10 years old videos sitting down in this brain that never seen for like 20, 50 years. This is the easy way of like searching for the videos, because in the past there's a hard drive sitting down in the cupboard and you have to look for it. Pull this hard drive, stick it in, and then search for these missing videos. But these days, we scan the brain and then we can look through. It also tells us, if you click this video, it tells us what you're looking at it, when it's shot, what date. So it's new way of finding archive or missing piece. This is the hard drive, the brain. So 62 terabytes is still alive. It's not dead, not sitting down still in the cupboard. It's alive, it's moving around, and also it's building up. When you're putting new stuff in, it's also growing and working and talking to each other. We have 60,000 photo archive, and the earliest we have photos from anthropologists, missionaries, and teachers that lives in Yirrkala and took lots of photos of the community life. We're in Molka audio archive. So audio archive, we have 37 days of audio. 37 days. The earliest audio we have is a cassette tape recorded by anthropologist Ian Dunlop. Old people. The songman's up there. The old man is my great-great-grandfather, which is Bidikiji. He was the main singer, was shot in 1935, Donald Thompson's. This is the new audio we recorded in Molka project. We still recorded audios, and it's really important to document the audio and songlines for the next generations, unborn leaders coming up. Also, ladies audio. Latest audio is it's not happening these days from the young peoples. The old people, the ladies, have the knowledge of the songlines, and they can only tell the stories by crying the songlines. Young people still learning, and it's for us, for the media, it's really important we can document this before the knowledge gone, taken away. Mulka Video Archive. We have 13 days of video, 580 80 videos, and it's still growing because Mulka still making videos and new videos. So this was shot in 1960, the ceremony at Yirkala. We also do the ceremonies, documenting ceremonies. Tapi is an initiation ceremony when the young man become a man. And this is all the men's celebrating because they have to do dancings to make the young man happy, to keep him alive. Or we also do documenting Bapuro, which is funerals. This is Dr. Yunipingo's funeral, the lead singer of UTND. This is his funeral, so the family asked us to go and film it because it's really important for them and to share it for their grandsons or community events. We also the community come to us and ask Mulka to film this event stuff like graduating. We hang out with ladies to because the ladies have more knowledge how to read the land. So we go out and follow them with a camera to document what knowledge they have, to put it in the archive for 10 years or 20 years. People can see it. Sharing different knowledge. The lady here, my auntie, sharing how to get different colors from the different plants from the earth. So documenting. I will ask Wokorn and Rob to join me to talk about this video. I think we're gonna chat around. Yeah.
So you want me to do this first, eh?
Yeah. I will ask Wukun to tell us the story. This is Wukun's piece, the art piece he made, and I will ask him why he made this.
Okay. As you know that on your left here, all right, is the old pieces of the video, and it's called Time Wise. The second one is the video where Ian Donald have done, and the third one he done, and the other three is have done by Mocha Center. The reason why I done that because it give us the time wise of the filming. It's really old. Three of them is very, very old, and the other three is new that what we have done. One got no sound. One is people who come together like for celebrating or initiation stuff. The other one is a funeral where people brings out the coffin, and you can see that. The other one, the new one from the Murka is the boy to become as a man, and the other one is like a bukulub. Bukulub is when someone die, we need to wash away the spirit. And Kama is a festival where we all come together.
Can you tell us and the audience when Mulka started?
It started at 10 years ago when I started working there, and I'm still here working. It's great to work with Mulka because we started from a small computer, and that's where I started from. It's just a small little thing. And then all the other places like Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, all push into it and say, this is what we got, this is what we got, and then it grew up into be massive. And then today, we're going forward. We're not going backwards. Our technology has changed between the computer, the laptop, into the new computer. And it's just different between that. So I started from just a small laptop.
Yeah.
Rob, can you tell us your life or your stories?
Wow. What's the timer? Well, I guess my story is walking into the Mukka office and meeting a clan leader, Wukun, who was, a songman and in charge of lots of ceremonial business and in charge of his clan's estate, taking lots of responsibilities for the land and for his families, working on an archival project.
Yep.
And that came out of a peer group of clan leaders.
Yep.
Who are very renowned artists and sold a large collection of artworks to the Maritime Museum and used those funds to create their own archive.
Yep.
And so I'd come from other situations where institutions from perhaps government sources were trying to do archival projects in Indigenous communities, whereas this particular project was set up by the clan leaders. So they put their own money into the project to build the building, to buy the equipment, to employ Yungal, and also to have one Napaki or Western person to do the sort of in-between work between worlds. And so I was sort of very kind of, my eyes widened very much to see a clan leader sort of sitting behind an editing suite, playing with Final Cut Pro. And I'm like, and then I find out the story about it's the clan leaders would be your employer. And, this whole story started to unwind, and I started to sort of have a different sort of thought about what an archive in an Indigenous community actually look like, because I'd always seen it as part of a library project or school project or museum project.
Yeah, one thing that Murka really comes up is like whenever any politician comes in to our community, we're the first media, and we want to get a good shot of what is there. And we always talk to ABC and Inpaja about this, because remember, they only get 10 minutes out of that, and that's not enough for the community.
Yeah.
So we want to get more, good footage to do this for the
Actually,
community.
I remember my first meeting with you was actually not in the office, but Kevin Rudd came to Yirrkala,
Yeah.
and I was jostling for positions with Wookun, trying to get a good shot of Rudd,
Yep.
surrounded by clan leaders,
True.
being, formally introduced to the land. And it was quite interesting because all the raw footage from the Rudd ceremony, there was all those news crews, and they all fly away.
Yeah.
And they cut down what is a extensive ceremony into, like you say, a soundbite or a
Yep.
1 minute clip. And then we combine footage and we have this big ceremonial film,
Yep.
which the politicians and their speeches is a tiny bit.
Yep.
The big bit is all the ceremony
Yep.
that welcomes the politicians, which unfortunately, if you rely on external film crews for your footage, you don't get the dance and the performance.
Yeah.
You get the speeches and the meetings.
Yeah, which is obviously that's why we want to be a first media to do that.
Yeah. And so the Mooka's been going for about 10 years now, and it did start in some ways with, there was a lot of anthropologists coming through Northeast Arnhem Land doing lots of filming of ceremony. And there was always a strong, if you're an anthropologist turning up in Yirrkala, you didn't just walk around with your camera and do whatever you wanted.
No.
The clan leaders had a lot of control right from the start, right from 35, controlling how Ian Dunlop, how Donald Thompson, Mountford, different people were able to gather footage. And there was a lot of direction, there was a lot of collaboration, but there was also, Yungal took a very keen interest in archiving right from the get-go. The idea of dances being filmed and music being recorded was adopted and seen in a very opportunistic way, wasn't it?
Yeah. I always go to the leader and I talk to them about it, and saying that we got the request from the leader to do this, and we have to do the like special things like that, like dancing, record the audio at the same time, and all that. So
Yeah. So the interesting thing for the Mooka project is it's very focused on the digital world that's sort of surrounded archiving over the last 10 years.
yeah,
But the other story that I think platforms a lot of what's happened at Mooka is the cassette culture that happened in the late 70s and early 80s, where Yungal leaders suddenly had access to cheap recording technology.
Yep.
And although they'd worked closely with anthropologists and researchers and filmmakers for many years, they started to build their own libraries and their
Yep.
own archives
true. That's true.
using Guruto.
Yep.
And also these tapes were getting dubbed and distributed all around Arnhem Land in sort of peer-to-peer networks, where suddenly there was this large library that was being self-managed by Yungal.
Yeah, the other thing is Guruto is not only related by like human being, it's also related to our art, and art is very important. Art can't stay by himself. Art needs that kinship and the relationship with that goes along that. So it's a wide kinship because if we don't have kinship, then we don't have painting, and we need that to give it the strength and the power.
Yeah. So in terms of the Guruto and the archive, would you describe the Guruto as like the metadata, or like the archive as a way of keeping Guruto
Yo,
active?
alive, yo.
Yo.
So we move on to the Mulka Studio. Mulka Studio, it's the video editing and music recording. We do lots of editing, video editing, and also subtitling and translating videos. And when we finish the videos, we put it into archive and put it into public. this is yellow, the digital learning center. And it's also like people watch us do editing. And when we finish, they can watch it on the public area. And if they like it, they come up with the USB to get a copy, and they can watch it in their house.
Can I just say something about that space? Do you want to just go back for a second? The interesting thing is the photo being taken is in the editing suite. So the window looks into the editing suite, and the editors look onto the viewers. So
Yeah.
there's also an intergenerational thing going on where people are seeing how the films are made and then deciding to cross over
Yeah.
into the studio section, which is a way that's a really smart way for there to be lots of employment and lots of creative projects and lots of stuff like that
Yeah.
too.
We also have music studio. We record modern music, songlines, voiceover for the videos. You know, this is modern music, voiceover, and also we can mix the audios for the video on the music studio. Mulka Art. This is a video is made. It's still new. It's for the Telstra piece. If you want to check it out, you can go to the DAO next week and see it. So we also do commission work. So this is South Australian Museum, Iraqi exhibition. So we do exhibitions. We also do like commission work with other business or company. We done 5-minute documentary for NITV, ABC Online. This is the new piece we made. It's a Wokon piece, fish, platicage. If you want to check it out, you can go down next week. Young people's art. We have young staff that working for us, so they wanna create some artworks in their way. Mulka VR 360. This is the 360. We bought this new camera, 360 6i camera, and we also create VR world, create trees. You know, one of our staff members visiting the VR world. What we made, trees, water, all this stuff. The tree is actually made from us. We took lots of photos in the community, lots of different trees, and then we build it up in the VR. We have a game engine as well, so we can create any games, Yolngu games. So this is how we take photo of the objects and put it in 360 VR, so you can see in the objects, see what's damaged. This is like a game engine, so creating new art in the VR. We have a drone. Drones, you know, we use it for mapping the land or scanning the land by telling the drone to do 900 photos in 5-10 minutes. This is how the drones do it. So it's just come back and forth, taking lots of photos, and we put it into computers, create the model of the island, and we can see it. We have a headset and a VR. We can zoom in, rotate it. Yeah. This is Mocha.
No, we do it.
Ma.
Okay. I'll stand here.
Yeah.
Better. So that kind of gives you a context. I think what we haven't brought out enough is our two visitors as artists. So maybe we could have a little discussion and then we'll open for questions because I'm sure people are interested to ask about the project and the work that's been done there. But, maybe you could talk about your identity as an artist working in new media, and Ishmael, maybe then you could talk a little bit about what your creative projects are and what they mean to you as an artist, as well as a creative director at Mulka. Perhaps you can talk about the artistic framework at Mulka that's keeping culture strong.
Yeah.
So like going from being a painter, media artist, yeah?
Yeah. I'm a painter, and what really made me to jump into to hold a camera is the first time, and I was watching this anthropologist guy whose name is Ian Donlock, and I was only a kid who just watched him how he moved the camera as like a shark, and then I said to myself, well, I'll be like that one day, and I want to do that, and apparently I done it. and that's how it kicks me. We never learn in a university. We learn on the ground, and we watch. Our first thing is to listen and see about what is the reaction is. That is very, very important to us, and that's how it catch me to be a director who interested about filming. And now I bug at my shoulder, so I can't do anymore. But I still support my crew. They're a pretty good crew, and we want to move on.
I'll tell you my stories when I start. When I was year 12, 2009, I went to a Garma festival. It was afternoon, and I was watching a dance, Bungal, performed by Red Flags. And this guy here, running around with a camera, and asked me to help him out. He came to me and said to me, "Can you help me film this performance?" And no, I can't help you because I don't know how to use the camera. He said to me, "It's easy, I can teach you, and it's like $50 per hour. Give me the camera, I'll do it." So I filmed it. I filmed the shots for 4 hours, get the $200 and flew out. And finished my year 12. I came back and I started working for my dad because my dad was a project manager for Ranger. I was working there for 3 months, and this guy kept on looking for me. One day I went for a lunch at the shop, and he found me there having lunch, and he's like, "I've been looking for you all around. You know what, I really like your shot. Can you work for me?" Okay, I'll do it. And because the ranger look after the land and the sea and the feral animals and the plants and weed and all that, you know, I didn't think about the job. I think about upgrading skills. I can upgrade my skills. It's another way of looking after, Mulka is documenting culture and languages for the next generation, for future, for all that. I think about that. So when I started working for them 8 years now, and then from there I done lots of work. He taught me how to edit. He's like, "It's easy, just watch me, I do edit." And then I watched them, I done it, and he's like, "What else I have to teach you?" Like, "Don't teach me anything, I'll teach myself." Yeah, and I done lots of art. I done documentary. I done 10-minute drama, Yolngu Live, football's grand final. 2014, I was a Young Northern Territory Keeper of the Year, Primavera. 2016, I won Telstra Award and Nemus Award. And yeah, I done lots of work with different filmmakers and different artists. Traveling around Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, London a couple of times. I was in Beijing last week, China, and then Tasmania, Hobart, and then I came across. Spent 2 nights here and then fly out. Yeah.
Myanmar.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that's interesting for us today is to think about this endpoint of the artwork and the accessibility and the message of the artwork about this much deeper culture. So the artwork now becomes a messenger that can be taken, down to Melbourne or taken to Darwin and carry behind it this immense richness of cultural continuum, of skills, of knowledge. And I think that's part of the agency of the artwork that you two have been interested in, isn't it? The way that you make a piece and then that piece becomes available for places that are so far away. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about when you're making an art piece, a film or some new media piece, what it is that you're thinking about that you need to pull into it so that it can have a proper role as new media that might go to San Francisco or go to Beijing or come to Melbourne.
New medias, it's also like difference working with the new medias because we always, in the past, we look after the archive photos and videos from the museum area. And when we bring stuff from museum, we also creating stuff, adding some artworks into the museum piece, so it's still alive. And also, we want to share the stories to the world, what we do and our life. People don't know where we come from, what we do. We are artists, we do everything. I'm a film artist, and last year I was in an exhibition in Perth, Anchorwood, done 50 spears, so I do spears, I do carvings, printmaking, I done lino cut and hatching and all that. And putting into media and going to the other world, my film's been screened in the film festival in Europe and America, all around.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is that we're sort of talking about here is the innovation, moving between mediums, moving between art forms. Part of that distribution is not just about innovation for innovation's sake, but about how you can be innovative with continuity. So how you can keep that ancestral journey going using all these different mediums, eh?
Yeah.
Not just one medium. How can you innovate the past and sort of animate it? And, that's the sort of Dawo that you sort of talk about with some of your work.
Yeah, and the other thing is like we share our culture. This is the only way we can share is just put it on TV, like NRTV, ABC, all that. To share other world that what we can do that Digital can run by itself is we have self-management and self-sufficient, and we done this. It's for our people, and we would like other people, Indigenous people, to do that. And the more we share, it's better for us. And we want other people in the world to understand that the media is more good to hold that, the history story about your lifestyle and about your father and your grandfather.
But there's this thing about secret and sacred material.
Yeah.
And then there's this thing about sharing. Whereas for Jungo, the sharing is
Oh,
a big thing. Eh?
Yeah, sharing. What I mean sharing is like sharing about the surface of the water, but not beyond the water. And that's what we're trying to do. We share that little bits and pieces of the surface of the water, and not inside, like the sacred part.
Yeah, media piece is new part for us, creating artworks in the media, because we've been making spears and all that for like many years, long time. So it's a new art, and we want to share it to the world, and teach each other and learn from each other, all that.
But still, the number one activity for Mooka is filming ceremony, isn't it?
Yo,
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's what keeps everyone the busiest.
yeah. The culture is important to us, and we want to maintain that, and we want to give that strength to our grandkids and our family, and etc., etc., etc.
Thank you. So I think what it's interesting for us, we'll now open up for questions. Interesting to think about is how we tend to manage in our preservation activity through things like creating appropriate metadata, through copying, emulation, various ways that we approach a digital artwork and then construct our preservation methodology around this. And I think what Mooka shows us is that there's a different way of doing it, which is when the metadata is absolutely embedded in a cultural continuum, and then it's drawn on to create product rather than manage product. But as part of that, the management then just falls seamlessly into the entire continuum. So thank you to Mr. Wukunwanabe, Mr. Ishmael Marika and Rob Lane for the presentation, and we'll open to questions now. Have we got any questions from the floor? Nick.
I just wanted to make a comment, I guess, more than a question, is what really strikes me about this is that the new media is not a disruptor to Gurtu. The Yirrkala community is not being challenged by the new technology. It's absolutely being used to harness Gurtu, which is embedded in absolutely everything that the community does. And I think I find the remix of the audio from 2012 with the Thompson footage of 35, to me that's the absolute expression of what we as archivists should be trying to do. We should be trying to make new material and archival material available so it can be used to enhance those the connections that the community is seeking. And I think there's something really inspirational for us as archivists. We often concentrate on the thing, but this is about the meaning of the thing and what the thing, the object can do in terms of transmitting meaning and understanding. And yeah, it's fantastic.
And it's interesting in terms of our national collecting institutions like ACME, how you collect something like films, new artwork from Mooka, and then what kind of material you bring to back up that collecting methodology. So what do you collect as your metadata or your provenance documents around the collection of works from a place like Mooka, and how much does that link to having the relationship with that point of production as well? Do we have any other questions? We've got about 2 minutes. Yep. Sorry, it's almost impossible for me to see, so...
Hi there, and thank you for speaking with us today. With the move of archives, excuse me, into a digital framework, I'm curious about the delocalizing aspect of digital archives and how you, with something like Gurtu, which is so connected to the local, connected to the community, and connected to the land, how you mediate that delocalization with a digital database.
You want to talk about the cloud? Or?
Well, the clouds is also connected. When you see the clouds in the distance, just one cloud's coming in, and then when you get here, it's building up, and then from building up, it starts falling down rains, and then falling down, rains fall down, the water get calmer. And then water get calmer, you see the birds flying. And that's how the connections goes. But in the Yolngu, there's connections how the songlines goes. When it's finished, and Wokon means cloud. Yeah. And connections through the songlines, it's been passed on from ancestors to us, and then we're still passing on whoever comes in. And connections Guruddo to the land, you have to read what's the plants telling you, what season is it? Is it harvesting time to get good food, or is it winter or summer? Is it summer, good time for swimming? You know, that's the connections of Guruddo.
Yeah. There has been a lot of, because of repatriation, there's been dealing with a distributed collection from the inside out for quite a long time, where the data that Yolngu data was stored in other places, and bringing that data back to Yirrkala in a digital form is seen purely in a digital form. So having it stored remotely or virtually is not seen as a sort of risky endeavour, or like, for example, a lot of the videos are on YouTube. A lot of the ceremonial videos are on YouTube and Vimeo. A lot of that material, all the raw data, is stored privately, obviously, in Yirrkala. But there's a sort of this idea of the digital files being able to circulate and for them to be able to take care of themselves is kind of hasn't been experienced as such to take away that sort of openness for Yolngu. There's a sort of openness to the technology will work for us, and we'll say yes to everything until we can't say yes to everything in a certain way. So the idea that a lot of material stored off site or backed up in other areas is not something that freaks you out, really, is it? You know, it's it freaks you out that there's lots of stuff you can't access.
Yeah.
But it's more about access than it is about it being offside.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a red flashing 0, which means that we're out of time. So if we can thank Mr. Mukunwanabe and Mr. Ishmael Marika and Rob for his contribution.